In this video, I'm going to be testing each one of these screen protectors for the brand new iPhone 16 Pro Max to destruction. And I'm going to find out which ones are the worst and which ones I think are worth your time. And I guarantee that you're going to find one screen protector here you're going to absolutely love. And I'd also like to give a huge shout out to everybody for all your support and comments on last year's video. And if you're new here and you like what I'm doing, please hit that like button because it really helps out the channel. And as always, I will be putting timestamps and product links in this video's description so you guys can skip around. And make sure you stick around to the end of the video because I will be telling you which one of these screen protectors I thought were the absolute best. So grab your snacks, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. And really quick before we begin, I just want to let you know that before every screen installation, I will thoroughly clean off the screen and dry it so I don't have to show it to you every single time. Then here we have the TORRAS Glass Go tempered glass screen protector. So we get 2 installation packets, 2 screen protectors with an installation guide, and a squeegee. And this also has a very easy bubble-free installation. Then remove any dust with our dust sticker. Then take your whole installation tray with your screen protector in it, making sure that the top portion here goes towards the camera on your phone. We're just going to press this whole thing over the top of our phone, just like this. Then you need to hold the guide in place with one hand. You don't have to press down on top of this guide to hold it in place. Just hold it from the sides and make sure it doesn't move. Then with your other hand, we're going to pull out the little tab here. Then run your finger down the middle just like this and it'll start to adhere to your phone. Then once that's done, we're going to take off the screen protector from our screen. Just kind of lift up from the top here. You can see it releasing from your phone. Now we do have a bubble in the bottom corner here, so we're just going to use our squeegee to kind of push that out towards the edge. So it does look like there's still a little bit of bubbles there and it's not going to come out with just the squeegee. So I think I'm going to have to kind of relift the screen protector just a little bit to actually get those out. If you're going to do this, just make sure you're very careful because you can crack the screen. So I was able to get those bubbles out just by very carefully lifting the screen and using the squeegee, and I don't see any dust underneath the screen. Again, this is also a full coverage screen protector, so it almost comes up to the top and the edges of your phone, and it also covers your camera and your Face ID. Now, we'll also be testing this out with a case to see how case friendly it is as well. As far as touch, super smooth, just like the glass on the phone. The edges are slightly rounded off. There is a little bit of a sharpness to it, but it's not bad. You can see that the screen is nice and clear. Let's test out our camera. Camera looks nice and clear as well. Don't see any issues there. Let's test out our Face ID. Face ID working fine. As far as fingerprints goes, it does pick up some fingerprints and smudges on the screen, but because of the oleophobic coating, you can very easily just wipe those away with minimal effort. There is also a very slight gap all the way around the phone. And again, we're going to be checking out the case compatibility. It also shows that this screen maintains 55% anti-glare and 65% anti-reflectiveness of the iPhone screen. So here is my studio light inside the tempered glass, and we're also going to compare this to the regular glass on the iPhone to see if there's any difference. So now let's see what it looks like through the lens of polarized sunglasses. So as you can see, there is a slight rainbow effect. If you're looking at it dead on, it's very subtle, but if you turn the phone to the side or anything like that, the rainbow does get worse. But again, you're most likely going to be looking at your phone dead on, so it's really not going to be that much of an issue. Now let's take a look at the light bleed from the edges of the screen protector. So there is just an ever so slight bit of light bleed from the corner there. You can see it's just super subtle. This is one of the probably one of the better screen protectors I've seen that doesn't have much of a gap for the light on the sides. Come on. And then on the other side here, you can see again, it's about the same. It's just an ever so slight gap where you can see a little bit of light bleed. Really not that bad. That just means that the installation is pretty much perfectly aligned with the phone. And as you can see, the screen is crystal clear and touch working perfectly fine. Nice and smooth. So now let's try it out with our TORRAS O-Stand 360 spin case. And it seems like it fits this case perfectly. There's just a very slight gap on the top of the screen and on the bottom and on the sides. No bubbles, no lifting. So if you have a TORRAS case, it should fit it perfectly. Now because the tolerances are so tight on all corners of this screen, it may or may not fit other cases. You're just gonna have to try it out with the case that you have. But I do like the fact that it's very tight because that's less space for dust and things to collect on your phone. So everything about this screen protector is looking great so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So we're going to be starting the test by dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go, 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 3 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 3-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So regular tempered glass scratches at a Mohs hardness number 6. So we're going to start off with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see that there's no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and it's just maybe a little bit deeper at the number 7. So scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was pretty easy. It also may or may not be case friendly with most cases, but if you're using a TORRAS case, it'll fit perfectly. It lasted up until a 3-foot drop and scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. And then here we have the BENKS Glass Warrior tempered glass screen protector with a sapphire coating. So we get one large dust sticker, we get one screen protector, and an installation packet. Then take your dust sticker, place it over the whole screen on your phone. Then take your installation guide with your screen protector in it, making sure that the little up arrow is pointing towards the camera on your phone. We'll take off our dust sticker. Then place this whole tray right over the top of your phone, just like this. Press down, make sure it's nice and snug. Then we're going to hold the screen protector in place with one hand. You don't have to press down super hard on the guide, just hold it in place so it doesn't move. And with your other hand, we're going to pull out this number 1 tab here. Then press down on this area right here to start the adhesion. I don't know if you guys can see that it is adhering to the screen. So just wait for the whole screen to adhere to your phone. And then once that's done, we need to press down on the number 2 at the bottom here. And then it says we need to press down on the number 3, which doesn't seem to do anything. So we're just going to lift up this whole guide. Let's see if we can get this off. And it looks like we do have some bubbles on the corner here that I'll just try to simply press out. So it does look like I was able to squeegee out the bubbles on the side here. Just make sure if you don't use your finger, you can use a credit card. Just make sure whatever you're using is not metal, it's plastic. And the screen protector looks like it's perfectly installed. There is a slight gap around the edge of the phone for case compatibility. I will test that out in just a minute. The edges are also rounded off very nicely. Feels very good to the touch. The glass is nice and smooth, just like the glass on the phone. This is also a full coverage screen protector, so it does cover your camera and your Face ID, but that seems to work fine. Test out our camera. Camera looks super clear, very nice. No issues there. Now, as far as fingerprints goes, it does seem to do a really good job at fingerprint rejection. There's only slight markings of my palm and my fingerprints, and we can very easily just wipe those away because of that oleophobic coating. Very nice so far. It also does seem to have a little piece to kind of protect your speaker as well. So now let's take a look at our phone as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And you can see there is a slight rainbow effect. If you're looking at it dead on, it's really not bad at all. Even when you start to twist and turn, it's only a very slight rainbow effect. So that's definitely a plus there too. So now let's see if there's any light bleed from the edges of the phone. So if you take a look at the side here, that side looks pretty good. There's only very slight bit of the screen kind of coming through the edge there. Let's test out the other side. Yeah, very slight edge. So the alignment of this screen protector is pretty perfect. This is the best alignment that I've seen so far. So not a lot of light bleed out of this screen protector, which is definitely good. It also doesn't look like it's covering any part of the screen either. It looks pretty good to me. So now let's put it in one of our BENKS cases. Here I have the Armor Air case. And if we take a look at the side, you can see that it's pretty flush with the case itself. And it seems to fit perfectly for this case. It really, there's still a slight gap all the way around the phone. So it should be case compatible with most cases, but again, just to be sure, you're going to really have to try out the screen protector with the case you're going to be using, but it fits perfectly with the BENKS cases. And as far as the screen, you can see that it is crystal clear and touch is working perfectly fine. It's nice and smooth. So everything about this screen protector is looking great so far. Now let's test out the durability with the drop and the scratch test. So we're going to start off the test by dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 5 feet. 6 feet. 6 feet. Very nice. So this screen protector lasted up until a 6-foot drop. Now let's test out the scratch resistance. Now because the screen protector has a sapphire coating, it should be more scratch resistant than regular tempered glass, which typically starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6. So we're going to start off with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally a number 7. Now sapphire tends to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 8 or 9, so let's see what this screen protector scratched at. So as you can see, there are no scratches at the Mohs hardness number 5. There are slight at the number 6 and deeper at a number 7. So it may be a tad better than regular tempered glass scratch resistance, but again, it's still scratching at a 6 and a 7. So installation for the screen protector was super easy and it was aligned perfectly on the phone. It may or may not be case friendly with most cases. It lasted up until a 6-foot drop, and scratch resistance might be a tad better than regular tempered glass. And then here we have a privacy screen protector made by FLOLAB. So first up, we're going to test the FLOLAB ONETIME Pro Privacy Screen Protector. Now this screen protector has anti-reflective, anti-fingerprint, and antimicrobial coatings. It's also a triple strength, it's super easy to install, and it also has a lifetime warranty. So we get one screen protector, a squeegee, and some installation wipes. Then take your dust sticker, we'll take off one part, just like this. We'll place this over the front of our phone. Make sure it's in place, and then you can just push out the other part of the sticker, just like that. Let's push out any air bubbles. So then take your guide with your screen protector in it, making sure that the top signifier here is going towards the camera on your phone. We'll take off our dust sticker, then stick on the whole guide over your phone, just like this, press it into place. Then hold on to the guide with one finger. You don't have to press down on it hard. Just make sure it stays in one spot. Then we're going to pull out this little piece of plastic here with our other hand. And just slide your finger up the middle, just like that. And then wait about 20 seconds for it to adhere to your phone. Once that's done, we can lift up on the guide. And you're all set. And make sure you hold on to your installation guide for your warranty. So let's take a look at the screen. So we do have some bubbles on the bottom here. Not a problem. We have a squeegee, so I'll just squeegee those out. So I was able to get those bubbles out very easily with the squeegee. Installation looks great. We do have a slight gap around the phone for case compatibility, which we will test in just a few minutes. I don't see any bubbles, no lifting. Screen looks really nice. As far as the touch, super smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone, maybe even a little smoother. The edges are also rounded off. So the screen protector is a full coverage screen protector, and it does cover the sensors for our Face ID. So let's test that out. Face ID working fine. Now with all of these privacy screens, it does dull the screen down. So you probably will have to raise the brightness on your screen to kind of compensate for that. But once you do, it looks crystal clear. Now let's test out our camera. Camera looks perfectly fine, nice and clear. Now as far as fingerprints goes, this does a really good job at rejecting fingerprints. I really don't even need to wipe the screen. As you can see, there's only very slight smudging like right here, but it's so light, like I mentioned, you really don't even need to wipe the screen off. Now this screen protector does have anti-reflective technology built in, and if we take a look at our studio light in the screen here, it significantly dims that light, so you can see the screen a lot easier than you could without the anti-reflective technology. So now let's take a look at the screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. So as you can see, there is a very slight rainbow effect. It's kind of like a pastel color. Not really bad. FLOLAB does make screen protectors that have anti-rainbow effect technology built in. The privacy just does not have that. But the rainbow effect really isn't that bad. And now let's take a look at the light bleed from the corners and edges of the screen here. So you can see there is a slight gap for the screen, so you can see the edge here kind of light up. Again, you're not going to see this when you're looking at your phone normally. It's just something that I've been testing because somebody mentioned it in the comments. And then for the other side, you can see that the the gap is just ever so slight. It's really not that bad. But again, when you're looking at your screen normally, you're not going to even see that on the sides. And then for the privacy effect, if you're looking at your screen dead on, you can see everything very easily. But if you're trying to look at the phone from the side, you can see that everything just disappears. That is pretty cool. So let's put it in our case to check out the case compatibility. And it seems to fit the case perfectly. I don't see any lifting, no bubbles. There is a large gap on the bottom of the screen here, but on the top it seems to be pretty flush with the case and on the sides. So it may or may not be case compatible with most cases. You're just going to have to try it out yourself, but it does seem to fit this case pretty much perfectly. We do have a little piece of dust down at the bottom there. But everything else looks pretty good. So everything's looking great so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So we're going to start off our test by dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go, 2 feet. 2 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 2-foot drop, and now let's move on to the scratch test. So regular tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6, so we're going to start off this test with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6, and then a number 7. So if you take a look at the screen, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are ever so slight at a number 6. Sorry. Come on, focus. And then a little bit deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance seems like it's a tad bit better than regular tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was really easy. It also might be case friendly with most cases. It lasted up until a 2-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be a little bit better than regular tempered glass. And then here we have the FLOLAB one-time screen protector. So this screen protector is ultra clear, it's case friendly, it's got anti-fingerprint and antimicrobial coatings, it's got triple strength, it's very easy to install, and again it's got a lifetime warranty. So we get 2 tempered glass screen protectors with a guide, some installation wipes, and a squeegee. Then take one of your dust stickers. We're going to remove one side. We're going to place this down over the top of our phone. And then you can kind of push out the other side just like this. Push out any bubbles. Then you're going to take your guide with your screen protector, making sure that the top signifier here is going towards the camera on your phone. We're going to remove our dust sticker. I'm going to place this whole guide over the top of our phone just like this. Press it into place. Now you just need to hold onto the guide so it doesn't move when we pull out this little plastic tab. You don't need to press down on it with your one hand, just make sure that it does not move. So we'll pull out the tab. We'll slide our finger up the middle here, and then we'll wait 20 seconds for it to finish adhering to the screen, as you can see. Now there may be some bubbles, but that's not a problem because we do have our squeegee and we can very easily get those out. If it has stopped and the bubbles aren't going anywhere, that's fine. You can just lift up on the guide. And then I'm going to take my squeegee and we'll get out these bubbles. So I was able to get the bubbles out with my squeegee. As you can see, installation looks really good. There is a pretty even gap all the way around the screen for case compatibility. The edges are also rounded off. Now this is a full coverage screen protector, so it does cover your camera and your Face ID sensors. So let's test that out first. Face ID working fine. As you can see, the screen is crystal clear. Touch working perfectly fine. It's also super smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. Let's test out our camera. Camera looks nice and clear. Don't see any issues there. So now let's take a look at the screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And as you can see, there is a slight rainbow effect. It's really not bad at all. Even if you twist and turn the screen, you can still very easily see everything without much of a rainbow effect. And then let's test out the light bleed on the side of the screen. So we take a look at the edge. There's just a very slight bit of edge bleed, not really that bad. On the other side, about the same thing. So it's very minor. Not really a deal breaker for me. So now let's check out our case compatibility. This is the FLOLAB SureTech case. And it seems like there's still a good gap all the way around the case, so it should be compatible with most cases. Definitely a plus. And just to test that out, I will test it with another case as well. And it's the same thing. No lifting, no bubbles. There still is a good gap all the way around the screen. So again, this screen protector should be compatible with most cases. Now, as far as getting the bubbles out on my screen, it was fairly easy, but you might have to work a little bit with the squeegee to kind of get them out. And that's because the adhesive on these screen protectors are a little bit thicker than normal. So you might have to lift up on the screen a little bit to get some of the bubbles out. Some of the bigger ones you can use the squeegee, but it shouldn't be too hard to get them out. So everything's looking good so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. All right, so again, we're starting off our test at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 3 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 3-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So regular tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6. So we're going to start off with the number 5. And we'll move on to a number 6, and then a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are light at a number 6 and a little deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. So installation for this screen protector was pretty easy. You just have to deal with maybe some of the bubbles. It is case friendly. It lasted up until a 3-foot drop, and scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. And then here we have FLOLAB's ONETIME Pro clear screen protector that has anti-reflective coatings as well as a polar spectra coating. Now let's install the clear FLOLAB ONETIME Pro screen protector. Now this screen protector has anti-reflective, anti-rainbow, anti-fingerprint, and antimicrobial coatings. It's triple strength, it's got reinforced edges, it's easy to install, and again, it's got lifetime warranties. So we get one tempered glass screen protector, some installation tools and wipes, and a squeegee. Then take one of your dust stickers, peel off one side, stick that down on top of our phone, and then just kind of push out the other side. And if you have any bubbles, just kind of push those out. Then take your installation guide with your screen protector, making sure that the top signifier here is going towards the camera on your phone. We're going to peel off our dust sticker. Then take this whole thing and just place it over the top of your phone, just like that. Then just take one hand, hold onto the guide, don't press down on it, and with the other hand, pull out this little plastic tab on the side. Press your finger up the middle of the screen. It should start to adhere, which you can see on the sides here. If you do get some bubbles in the middle, that's okay. We can use the squeegee that came with the installation kit. Just lift up the guide, and we'll take a look at our screen protector. So we do have some bubbles. I'm going to be using the squeegee to get that big bubble out, and the bubbles that are kind of close to the edge, you can also use your squeegee to get out, but the ones that are kind of in the middle, I would kind of recommend lifting up on the screen to try to get those out. But you need to be very careful because you can crack the screen. If you don't feel comfortable with doing that, I wouldn't do it. I would just use your squeegee and try to get these out. So it looks like I was able to get the bubbles in the middle of the screen out just with the squeegee's little corner. Just kind of make little circular motions over the bubble and it should disappear. Alright, so the installation is looking pretty good. Again, I was able to get out like 99% of the bubbles with the squeegee alone, not having to lift up on the screen. There was a little bubble down in the corner here that I did end up having to lift the screen just a little bit to get that out, but other than that, all the other bubbles came out just using the squeegee. So again, installation looks really good. There is a slight gap around the edge of the screen for case compatibility, which we will be testing out. Screen is super smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. Edges are rounded off. As far as fingerprints, it does pick up some slight smudges, as you can see on the screen here. Not really that bad, but because of the anti-fingerprint coating, we can very easily just wipe those away with minimal effort. Now this screen protector again also does have anti-reflective coatings, so you can see how much it dulls down my camera light in the background versus a screen of the iPhone without the anti-reflective coating. You can see there is a pretty big difference. And even while looking at the screen, you can still see your icons versus the screen that does not have the anti-reflective coating. But as you can see, the screen is crystal clear. This is also a full coverage screen protector, so it does cover your camera and your Face ID sensor, but Face ID working perfectly fine. Test out our camera. Camera looks nice and clear as well. No problems there. Again, touch working fine. Barely have to touch the screen for it to register. Now let's see what our screen looks like through polarized sunglasses. And they also include this little tool here so you can actually see what that looks like. So as you can see, there is no rainbow effect on the screen even when I twist and turn the screen itself. Actually, there's just a slight bit. But when you're looking directly at the screen, there is no rainbow effect, and that's because of the polar spectra coating that they have on this screen protector. Definitely 99% better than any other screen protector out there. So now let's take a look at the light bleed, if there is any, from the edges of the screen. So as you can see, there is ever so slightly some bleed from the side. Not that bad. Let's test out the other side here. And again, about the same. Really not that bad, but there is some. So now let's put our phone inside of our case. This is the FLOLAB Surtech case. Fits the case perfectly. There is still a gap on the bottom of the case here and a slight bit on the top, not so much on the sides, but there is no lifting, no bubbles. It fits this case perfectly. So this screen protector should fit about probably 99% of the cases out there, but there still might be that 1% where the screen protector just might not work. You're just gonna have to test it out with your case. But this fits perfectly within the FLOLAB Surtech case. So again, everything is looking great so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So again, we're going to start off this test at 2 feet with a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball. Two feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 2-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So again, we're going to start off with a number 5. Move on to a number 6. And then a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5. There are very slight at a number 6. And about the same at a number 7. I think that's probably because of the anti-reflective coating that we can't see the scratches that well. That is pretty cool. Because with all the other screen protectors, it reflects the light very easily so we could see the scratches, whereas here you can't really see them very well because of the anti-reflective coating. So installation for the screen protector was really easy. It also should be case friendly. It lasted up until a 2-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be maybe a little bit better than regular tempered glass. And then here we have the FLOLAB ONETIME Max in a matte anti-glare coating. Now let's test out the FLOLAB ONETIME Max matte anti-glare screen protector. So again, this has anti-glare, anti-rainbow, anti-fingerprint, and antimicrobial coatings. It's got triple strength, it's got triple layer protection, it's easy to install, and it's also got a lifetime warranty. So we get one screen protector, some installation tools and wipes, and a squeegee. Then we'll take our dust sticker, we'll peel off one end, stick this down on the top of our phone, and just kind of push out the other side. Get out any bubbles. Then take your screen protector and your guide, making sure where it says top, that goes towards the camera on your phone. We'll peel off our dust sticker. Then take this whole guide, just put it over the top of your phone. Then hold on to it with one hand. You don't have to press down super hard, just make sure it doesn't move during the installation. Then take your other hand, and we're going to pull out the plastic tab here. And then just slide your finger up the middle. Wait 20 seconds. Now if it does stop adhering to your screen, that's okay. We can just simply use the squeegee to get those bubbles out. We'll lift up on the guide. As you can see, it's still adhering, but we do have some bubbles that we will just use the squeegee to push out. Now I was able to get out most of the bubbles just using the squeegee. I did have to lift up one of the ends to kind of get the bubble out, but for the most part the squeegee does a good job. And keep in mind, sometimes you don't even need to press super hard on the screen. You just kind of touch the bubble and maybe press just very, very slightly and the bubble will come out. Now I do have just one little bubble here that doesn't want to go away, but it might go away after a few days. We'll see. But for the most part, pretty good installation, bubble free, and there's no issues. Now this is a full coverage screen protector, but it's got a clear portion where your camera and your Face ID are, so that shouldn't have any effect on that. But for the rest of the screen, it's got an anti-glare coating, and you can kind of see that with the studio light in the background. It also does have a slight gap all the way around the screen for case compatibility, which we also will test out. As far as the touch, super smooth. It's probably smoother than the glass that's on the actual phone. It's just, your fingers just glide across this glass so easy. The edges are also rounded off. As you can see, the screen is crystal clear. Now let's test out our camera. Front screen looks totally clear to me. Don't see any issues with that. And Face ID is working perfectly fine. And you can see the screen is crystal clear, and when I turn it towards the light, it does keep down that glare pretty significantly. Touch, again, also working perfectly fine, nice and smooth. And then as far as fingerprints goes, it does a really great job at keeping down those fingerprints. You can see there's just very minor smudges on the screen, which almost you really can't even see, but you can just very easily, lightly wipe those away without any effort. So now let's see what the screen looks like as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And as you can see, it looks pretty good. The rainbow effect is super minimal. Really no problem seeing what's on the screen whatsoever. And now let's take a look at the edge bleed, if there is any. And you can see that it is ever so slight. And then on the other side, again, just a very slight gap. Not really a big deal. And then let's put it in our case. And it seems to fit perfectly. I don't see any bubbles. I don't see any lifting. And again, this is FLOLAB Certec case. There's a very slight gap on the bottom and maybe on the top, and just a very slight gap on the edges. But I've been reassured by FLOLAB that this screen protector should be compatible with about 99% of the cases. I absolutely love matte screen protectors because of the way that they feel. They just feel so silky smooth, and it kind of gives the screen kind of like a softness. It looks so cool. Like you can't even tell that there's glass on your screen with the regular clear glass. So looking pretty good so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So again, we're going to be starting off our test at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. Moving on to 4 feet. 5 feet. 6 feet. 6 feet. Wow, so this screen protector lasted up until a 6-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. Now regular tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6, but because this is a matte screen protector, we're going to start off with the number 3. Then we'll move on to a number 4, and then a number 5, then a number 6, and then a number 7. And then we'll take a look. So I don't see any scratches at the number 3, the 4, the 5. There is slight at a 6 and a little bit at a number 7, but they don't really go deep. They kind of just are superficial. It's very hard to show you because of the anti-glare coating, but you can definitely see that there are scratches here and not on the rest. And again, they're really not as deep, nearly as deep as the regular clear tempered glass. So scratch resistance seems to be better on this than regular tempered glass is. So installation for the screen protector was really easy. It also should be case friendly. It lasted up until a 6-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be better than regular tempered glass. And then here we have FLOLAB's ONETIME Max with anti-blue light blocking. And then lastly, we're going to install the FLOLAB ONETIME Max with blue light blocking. It's also got anti-fingerprint and antimicrobial coatings. It's got triple layer strength, easy installation, and it's got lifetime warranty. So we get one screen protector, installation wipes, and a squeegee. So now really quick, let me show you how this actually blocks blue light. So here I have a little card that has a blue light kind of reactive film strip on it. So when blue light hits it, it actually turns purple. So you can see right here, I've got my blue light and it's actually kind of burning into purple. And I'll try to show you this one more time. I'll kind of put the card right underneath the screen protector and I'll hit it with my blue light. And you can see that it's not turning purple. Whereas if I was to take it away and do the same thing, it would turn purple immediately. So you can see that the screen protector is actually blocking out blue light really well. Then take your dust sticker, remove one of the ends, place it over the top of our phone, and just push out the other end. Now we'll take our installation guide with our screen protector, making sure that the top signifier here is going towards the camera on your phone. We'll remove our dust sticker, put this over the top of the phone just like that. Then hold the guide with one hand. You don't have to push down on it, just hold it so it doesn't move during installation. And then pull out the little plastic tab with your other hand. Then push down from the top to the bottom of the screen. And then remove the guide. So it looks like we do have some bubbles right here, you can see, and at the bottom. We'll just use our squeegee to kind of get those out. So I was able to get those bubbles out with the squeegee. I did have to lift up a little bit on the screen protector with my fingernail to get one of them out, but as you can see, it is bubble free. Looks really good, no dust. Very nice installation. As far as touch, super smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. The edges are also rounded off. This is also a full coverage screen protector that does cover your camera and your sensors on the front, so we'll test those out in just a second. There is also a slight gap all the way around the phone for case compatibility. So let's test out our Face ID. Face ID is working perfectly fine. You can see the screen is crystal clear. Let's test out our camera. Camera looks nice and clear as well. No issues there. As you can see, touch working fine. You can just barely touch the screen to get it to register. So let's take a look at the screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. Now, as you can see with this screen, there is a blue light blocking filter, but there is a slight rainbow effect. I don't think it's really bad. It's kind of light. Depending on how you're looking at the phone, it gets a little bit more than normal, but if you're looking at it dead on, you shouldn't really see too much of a rainbow. Now let's take a look at the light bleed from the screen. So if we take a look at the side here, you can see there's just an ever so slight bit of bleed. Not too bad. And then on the bottoms here, or this other side, again, it's about the same thing. Really not horrible. Pretty much every screen protector that I've reviewed has that issue. It could be more, could be less, but this really isn't that bad. Now, another thing to note is the majority of the blue light blocking screen protectors out there do have some sort of a tint to them, whereas the FLOLAB is crystal clear, so it's not going to affect any of the colors. So now let's put it in our case. And it seems to fit this case perfectly. This, again, is the FLOLAB Surtec case. There's a slight gap on the bottom and on the top, and just a little bit on the edges, but there's no lifting, no bubbles. It just fits this case perfectly. And it should be compatible with about 99% of the cases out there. And then let's test out our fingerprints. So it does seem to do a pretty good job at rejecting fingerprints as well. There's just some smudges on the screen that you guys can see, but you can very easily just wipe those away with minimal effort. So everything's looking great on the screen so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So again, we're going to start off the test at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 4 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 4-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So we're going to start off our test with a number 5. And we'll move on to a number 6. And then a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are deeper at a number 6 and almost about the same at a number 7. So scratch resistance is pretty standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was pretty easy. It also should be case friendly. It lasted up until a 4-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. And here we have a clear tempered glass screen protector by AMFILM. So we get 2 tempered glass screen protectors with installation guides, 2 rear camera protectors, a squeegee, and a couple installation packets with stickers. Then take your dust sticker, peel that off, and then place this over the top of the whole screen on your phone. And we'll leave that on there until we're ready for the installation. Then take one of your screen protectors, making sure that the top portion where it says top is going towards the camera on your phone. And then we're going to peel off the number 1 sticker on the underside of the screen, just like that. Peel up the dust sticker. Then place this over the top of your phone immediately after, just like that. And then run your finger down the middle of the screen protector and it should start to adhere to your screen. If it doesn't, you might have to kind of just help it a little bit. And then once you've got it down on the screen as much as you can, we'll just lift up on the protector. And if you have any portions like you have here where it's not adhered to your screen, you can use your squeegee to kind of remove some bubbles and help it lay down on your phone the rest of the way. And it looks pretty good. I was able to get all those bubbles out just by using the squeegee. Screen protector looks really nice. There is also a pretty big gap around the screen for case compatibility. The edges are also rounded off. As far as touch, feels pretty smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. See, it's nice and clear. As far as fingerprints goes, does seem to do a pretty good job at keeping down fingerprints as well. There's just very, very slight smudges on the screen you can very easily wipe away. Now this is a full coverage screen protector, so it does actually cover the camera and the sensor on the front of your phone. So let's test out our Face ID. Face ID working perfectly fine, and as you can see, the camera is nice and clear. So no issues there. The screen is crystal clear. Touch working perfectly fine, no issues there. Now let's take a look at our screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And as you can see, there's just a very slight discoloration depending on how you angle the phone. But the rainbow effect on here is definitely not nearly as bad as some of the other tempered glass screen protectors. Now, if you're looking at this screen, I don't know if you guys can tell from the camera, but I see like a rainbow on the corner edge of the screen protector. Again, I see it, just looking at it from my eyes, but I don't know if you guys can tell from the camera. It's hard for me to tell. So let's test out the light bleed from the edge. And I think zooming in closer, you can kind of see now what I was talking about. It's like a purple green kind of rainbow effect on the corner or the edge of the screen protector. And as far as any light bleed, we just see a very small bit on the sides. I definitely don't think that it's a deal breaker for me. So now let's put it in our case. Seems to fit the case really well. There is also still a slight gap all the way around the screen, so it should be compatible with most cases. No lifting, no bubbles, working perfectly fine. So everything's looking good so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So we're going to be dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go, 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 4 feet. So this screen protector lasts up until a 4-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So regular tempered glass starts to scratch around the most hardness number 6. So we're going to start off with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are deeper at a number 6 and deeper than that at a number 7. So scratch resistance is pretty standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was pretty easy. It also does seem to be case friendly. It lasted up until a 4-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. So now that we've installed our tempered glass screen protector, let's install the rear camera protector and do our scratch test. Then take your rear camera protector and orient it in the way that the cameras are on the back of the phone. So you can see that the 2 camera lenses here line up with the 2 lenses here, and the 2 cutouts for our sensor and our LED are also in line. So then just peel off this back protector and place this over the top of your cameras. Press it into place, and you're all set. So as you can see, it looks pretty nice. It also doesn't add any extra bulk to your lenses either, which is great. Looks really good. So now your lenses are protected, and it also does seem to be smudge resistant as well. So let's test out our rear camera. So there's the rear camera. We'll kind of get in here and you can see it's nice and clear, even at close up. And I also don't see any issues anywhere else either with clarity. And then let's test out using the rear camera's flash. And I think that came out pretty good, nice and clear. I don't see any blooming. I think it did a pretty good job. And then let's put it in our case again to see how well that fits. And as you can see, this protector fits this case perfectly. You can see it's pretty flush with the edge here. So your lenses are still protected even though it does come up flush with the raised edge. So if you have a case that has this type of cutout for your cameras, you should be perfectly fine with this protector. But if your case has the protector on the back that kind of fills in these gaps between the lenses, you're not going to be able to use this protector. That looks really nice. And if you're wondering, this is the CASEBANG sheath case. So now let's move on to our scratch test. So again, we're going to start off our test with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally a number 7. And if we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at the number 6 and a little deeper at the number 7. So scratch resistance is pretty standard for tempered glass. And then here we have RINGKE's privacy tempered glass screen protector. So here we get a couple cleaning kits. We get an installation guide with the tempered glass and a refill for the guide. So first we need to clean off our screen with the alcohol wipe, then dry off the screen, then use your dust sticker to remove any dust. Then we're going to take our screen protector, making sure that the screen protector stays inside of this guide because it does seem to want to kind of come out prematurely. So just make sure that these little holes are over the little posts on the guide here. Just kind of press those down in place. Okay, then once that's done, we're going to take this whole guide and we're going to press it down over the top of your phone, just like that, making sure that the top signifier is going towards the camera on your phone. Then we're going to hold the guide down with one hand. You don't have to press very hard, just make sure it stays in place. And we're going to pull out this little tab here. Then press and slide your finger over the top. And it should start to adhere to the screen, as you can see it's doing right now. That's pretty cool. Very nice. And then once that's done, we can kind of lift up on the guide here. Then we'll take a look at our installation. That looks perfect. Oh, I see just a couple little bubbles down at the bottom here. Use our squeegee to try to get that out. And that's great. Seems like the most perfect installation that I've done yet. Screen looks really nice. Now this is also a full coverage screen protector as well. It does cover your sensors, but it's got a little cutout for our camera on the top here. And it looks like there's a couple little bubbles left at the top that I need to kind of squeegee out. There we go. Okay. Now it's looking good. As far as touch, super smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. The edges, they do seem to be rounded off, but be a little bit sharp at the top and at the bottom. A little better on the edges. But as you can see, the front camera is crystal clear. Don't see any issues there. And I do have my brightness up all the way because with the tempered glass, it does dull the screen down a little bit. So you might have to turn up your brightness. But as you can see, the Face ID is working perfectly fine. It's nice and clear. Touch working fine also. And as far as fingerprints, it does pick up some smudges on the screen, but you can very easily just wipe those away. No issues. So now let's take a look at our screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. As you can see, there is a slight rainbow effect, and it doesn't really seem like you can get away from it. So no matter where you're looking at it, the screen might get a tad bit better, but it could get a little worse. But that's pretty much looking at it dead on. It's not horrible. I've seen a lot worse. So now let's take a look at a light bleed from the edges of the screen. So we take a closer look here. You can see that there is like the white line, which is the light bleed from the edge of the screen protector. And on the other side, it's there too. So you can see it kind of light up that edge. That's pretty cool, actually. Seems like all the screen protectors pretty much have this light bleed issue, except for just one. So now the cool thing about the privacy screen is if you're looking at it dead on, you can see exactly what's on the screen. But if you tilt it to the side, you can see that the screen, it looks like it just disappears. And that's either way. That's pretty cool. But if you look at the screen up and down, the screen doesn't disappear. It's only to the sides. There also does seem to be a very slight gap all the way around the screen, so it may or may not be compatible with the case you're going to be using it in, but we're going to try it out with a RINGKE case. And it seems like it fits the RINGKE cases just perfectly. There's just a very slight gap at the bottom of the screen and at the top and on the side. So it's like perfectly fit. No lifting, no bubbles anywhere. So even though it fits the RINGKE cases, you're going to have to try it out with your case because it may or may not fit. But so far, so good. So now that we've tested all that out, let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So now we're going to be dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 4 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 4-foot drop, and that seems to be the trend this year so far. But now let's move on to the scratch test. So regular tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6, so we're going to start off with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6, and then finally a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are deeper at a number 6 and about the same at a number 7. So scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was probably the easiest so far. It may or may not be case friendly with most cases. It lasted up until a 4-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. And then here we have the BODYGUARDZ ceramic glass screen protector. It's supposed to be 20 times stronger than the unprotected screen on your phone. So we get one screen protector, an installation tray, and some installation wipes and stickers. Then take your installation tray, making sure that the camera cutout is in this little corner here, and make sure that your phone matches that same corner with the cameras into the hole here. And then take your wipe and then just kind of press the phone down inside the guide, just like that. Then use your dust sticker to pick up any dust. Then we're going to take our screen protector, making sure that the holes on the screen protector line up with the posts on the guide, making sure that the top portion is going towards the top and the sticker under here is on the bottom. We're going to peel off the sticker underneath. And we're going to place the posts into the holes on the guide, making sure the screen protector doesn't touch the top of the phone yet. And then once it's down, just run your finger down the middle of the screen and it should start to adhere to your phone. It does look like we got some bubbles in there, but once it's down, you can peel off the top layer. Then you can take your phone out of the guide by pressing through the middle here. And like I had mentioned, we do have some bubbles that appeared on the side here and on the other side of the screen. So I'm going to try to maybe squeegee those out with a credit card. So I'm going to try to squeegee those out with the little plastic squeegee that I have, but you can use a credit card or something like that. And it doesn't look like they're going to come out that way. So I'm actually going to very carefully lift the screen protector and then put it back down to try to get some of these bubbles out. If you're going to do this, I recommend you be very careful because you don't want to crack the screen protector when you're lifting it. All right, so I did manage to get those bubbles out fairly easily. It does seem like there are some slight bubbles on the bottom of the screen here that you can see right there, but it does mention in the instructions that the bubbles should disappear within 24 to 48 hours. Hopefully, I mean, it's really not that bad. They're just ever so slight down at the very bottom of the screen protector. And I also did manage to get a piece of dust underneath the screen, so that's not a bubble. Other than that, the screen looks pretty nice. It is a full coverage screen protector, so it does cover your camera and sensors, so we'll test that out. As far as touch, super smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone itself. The edges are also rounded off. It also does seem like there's a slight gap around the screen for case compatibility, which we will be testing out as well. As far as fingerprints goes, there are some slight smudges on the screen, as you can see there. Not really that bad, and you can very easily just wipe those away. No problems. So let's test out our Face ID. I had to input my code really quick, so now let's test out our Face ID. Face ID working fine. As you can see, the screen is crystal clear. No issues with touch. Working perfectly fine. And now let's see what the screen looks like as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. So as you can see, there is some rainbow effect depending on how you're looking at the phone. If you're looking at it dead on, there is a slight rainbow effect, but if you look at your phone from the side or start turning it, the rainbow does get a little bit more prominent. But definitely not nearly as bad as some of the other rainbows I've seen on these screen protectors. Now let's test out the light bleed from the corners of the case. So we can see that there is a slight bit of that light bleed just out of little corners there. But that seems to be the case with most of these screen protectors. I don't know how much anybody really cares about that. You can't really see it from the front of the phone. You only really see it in the dark if you're really looking for it. So now let's put it in our case. So this is the BODYGUARDZ Paradigm case, and it seems like the screen protector fits perfectly inside this case as well. Comes right up to the edge of the case. I don't see any lifting. There's still a slight gap at the top. On the sides, there's probably like just a very slight gap as well. And on the bottom here, it seems to come right up to the edge of the case. And then we can also see that anti-reflective technology. So this is what it looks like on the screen with the lights in my studio. And I'll compare this to the regular glass that's on the phone itself as well. So everything's looking pretty good so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. And then here's a comparison between the actual iPhone screen and the BODYGUARDZ. So you can see where the BODYGUARDZ anti-reflective coating actually works. It's toning down the brightness of the light, so you can see the individual LEDs a lot more than you can from the actual iPhone screen. So we're going to start off the test by dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go at 2 feet. 2 feet. So the BODYGUARDZ screen protector lasted up until a 2-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. Now tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6, so we're going to start off our test with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally a number 7. Now if we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5. There are very slight at a number 6 and about the same for a number 7. Now the interesting thing about this screen protector is they're not as deep as some of the other tempered glass screen protectors I've seen. It's super light. If you're looking at the screen dead on, you can't even see those scratches. The only time you see it is if you kind of tilt the screen in the light. So the scratch resistance seems to be better than regular tempered glass. And it actually kind of wipes away a little bit. Yeah, so scratch resistance is definitely better than regular tempered glass. Now installation for the screen protector wasn't really hard, but there was a significant amount of bubbles. But again, I was able to get those out fairly easily. It also does seem to be case friendly. It lasted up until a 2-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be better than regular tempered glass. And here we have a clear tempered glass screen protector by XBASE. So again, this does have 9H hardness. It also does have an oleophobic coating on it to keep down fingerprints. It's super clear, and it's also got beveled edges. So we get one screen protector and our installation packet with instructions. Then take your screen protector, making sure that this little sticker is on the underside of the screen, and it really doesn't matter how you install it because there are no camera cutouts or anything. It's pretty uniform all the way around the screen. So we'll peel off this bottom sticker, then just grab onto these little wings on the side and install it the best you can on your screen. And once it's down, you can use your finger to kind of guide the installation. And then once that's done, we can just peel off the top protector and we'll take a look. So we did get some bubbles right here in the corner, but I can very easily get those out by just slightly lifting the screen. So I was able to get those bubbles out just by very carefully lifting up the screen. And if you're going to do that, you need to be very careful because you can crack the screen. As you can see, it is a full coverage screen protector. Again, it covers our cameras and sensors on the top. There is also a good gap all the way around the phone for case compatibility, which we will test. The edges are also nicely rounded off, very smooth. And as far as the glass on the screen, nice and smooth as well, just like the glass that's on the phone. Now, as far as fingerprints goes, it does pick up very slight fingerprints, but it does seem to do a really good job at keeping those down. And because of the oleophobic coating, you can very easily just wipe those away. Now let's test out our Face ID. Face ID working perfectly fine, and as you can see, the screen is crystal clear. Touch working fine as well. You just barely touch the screen. Very nice. Now let's look at the screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. So as you can see, there is a slight rainbow effect for the screen protector, not horrible at all. And depending on how you tilt the screen, it could get a little better or a little worse. But if you're looking at the screen pretty much dead on, you're only going to see a very slight variation in that rainbow. So let's put the phone inside of our case. Seems to fit perfectly inside this case, and there's still a good gap all the way around the phone. So this screen protector should be compatible with most cases. Looking good so far. Now let's take a look at the light bleed from the side of the screen protector. Now because this has more of a gap between the phone and the screen protector, there might be a little more light bleed from the side. I don't think it's horrible, but you can see it. You can see right there. Let's take a closer look. So you can see that there is a slight gap between the edge of the screen protector and the glass itself. I don't think it's horrible. That's definitely not a deal breaker for me, but it's just something that I kind of wanted to show just in case you were interested in knowing. And also remember, you are installing the screen protector manually. There's no guide, so it's up to you to try to install it the best that you can. And sometimes it might be slightly less than perfect. But everything about this screen protector looks pretty good so far. So now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So we're going to be dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go, 2 feet. 2 feet. All right, so this screen protector lasted up until a 2-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So regular tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6. So we're going to start off with the number 5. We'll move on to a number 6. And then a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are deeper at a number 6 and about the same at a number 7. So scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was fairly easy. It could have been a little bit easier with a guide. It does seem to be case friendly. It lasted up until a 2-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. And then here we have a privacy tempered glass screen protector by XBASE. Again, this has all the same properties as the clear, 9H hardness, oleophobic coating to keep down fingerprints, and rounded edges. So we get one tempered glass screen protector and our installation packet. Use the dust sticker to remove any dust. Then take your tempered glass screen protector, making sure that the little number 1 tab is on the underside of the screen and the little cutouts for your cameras are going towards the camera on your phone. So we'll peel off that bottom protector. And then just hold on to the little wings on the side of the screen protector and install it the best that you can. And then once that's done, you can run your finger down the middles to start the installation. Then once it's done, you can just peel up the top protector and we'll take a look at our screen. So for the most part, it does seem to be pretty good. We do have some bubbles in the side, and I'll just kind of squeegee those out with a credit card. All right, so looking pretty good. I was able to get out those bubbles just by kind of lifting up very carefully on the screen. Screen looks pretty good. Don't see any extra bubbles. We do have our cutouts in the front here for our sensors and our camera. The edges are also rounded off. Feels really good. As far as touch, super smooth. Maybe even smoother than the glass that's on the actual phone. Now, one thing to note is with all of these privacy screens, they do dull the screen down. So you're most likely going to have to raise the brightness to kind of compensate for that. But as you can see, it is nice and clear. As far as our fingerprints, does a pretty good job at fingerprint rejection. There's only very slight smudges on the screen, which again, you can just very easily wipe away with a dry cloth. Very nice. As you can see, there's also a good gap all the way around the screen for case compatibility. Let's test out our Face ID. Face ID is working perfectly fine. As far as touch, nice and smooth, and you can see everything very easily on the screen as well. Now, if you're not familiar with privacy screens, the way that they work is if you're looking at the screen dead on, you can see it perfectly, but if you try to look at the screen from the side, it kind of just disappears like the screen isn't even on. That's pretty cool. Now, it does work side to side, but it does not work up and down. So if you're looking at the screen, you know, from up and down, you can see what's on the screen, but not from the sides. It is pretty cool. And then as far as our camera goes, no issues with the camera either. It is nice and clear. So now let's check out the light bleed from the edges of the screen. You can see that there is a slight amount. I don't think it's a deal breaker. Again, I'm not going to be looking at my phone from the side, but you can see a slight bit of white from the edge of the screen protector. So let's put our phone inside of our case. And the screen protector seems to fit perfectly, and there's still a good amount of gap all the way around the screen. So if you're going to be using this with other cases, you should be perfectly fine. No lifting, no bubbles, because there is still a slight gap all the way around the screen against the case. So everything's looking good so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So again, we're going to be starting our test by dropping the ball from 2 feet. Here we go, 3 feet. 3 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 3-foot drop, and now let's move on to the scratch test. So regular tempered glass starts to scratch at a Mohs hardness number 6, so we're going to start off with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6, and then a number 7. So if you take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are a little deeper at a number 6 and deeper than that at a number 7. So scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. So installation for this screen protector was fairly easy. It could have been a little easier with a guide. It also does seem to be case friendly with most cases. It lasted up until a 3-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. And then here we have a tempered glass screen protector by ULTRAGLASS. So it looks like we get 2 tempered glass screen protectors with an installation guide and some installation packets. And there's a squeegee. Then we can use our dust sticker to remove any dust. Then take your screen protector with your guide, making sure that the top portion here goes towards the camera on your phone. We're just going to place this whole thing right over the top of our phone and then just kind of press it into place. Then all you need to do is hold on to the guide with your hand, making sure that it doesn't move when we pull out this tab. You don't have to squish down on the guide itself. Just hold it in place and then pull this little tab out with your other hand. And then we'll wait for the screen protector to adhere to your screen, which it is doing right now. Then once it's done, we can lift up on the guide here. I would just kind of press down in the middle of your screen with 2 fingers, lift up on the guide, and then you can lift it up the rest of the way. So it looks like we did get a little piece of dust on the bottom here. Not super concerned with it. You can try to get it out if you really want to. We have some kind of dust in the corner here. It's kind of weird. I'm not going to try to get it out because I don't want to lift and bend the screen protector, but I will take my finger and try to get out some of these bubbles on the bottom here. It's a very small piece of dust, and the screen protector actually kind of just adhered around it, which is pretty nice. So you can see there was a little bubble with that little piece of dust, but it seems to kind of absorbed it. You can still see the little speck, but there's not like a big bubble. So that's definitely a plus. Now this is a full coverage screen protector, so it does cover your cameras and sensor on the top, and there is also a cutout for your speaker at the top here as well. There's a slight gap around the edge of the screen protector, so we will test that out with our case. As far as touch, super smooth, maybe even smoother than the glass that's on the phone, so that's definitely nice. As far as fingerprints goes, definitely does a good job at keeping down fingerprint rejection. There's only very slight smudges on the screen, and because of that oleophobic coating, you can very easily just wipe it away. Very nice. The edges are rounded off, maybe not as much as some of the other screen protectors, but it's not too bad. It is just a little bit sharp. As you can see, the screen is crystal clear. Let's test out our Face ID. Face ID working fine. Test out our camera. Camera's nice and clear, no issues there. As you can see, the screen protector itself is nice and clear. Touch working perfectly fine, no issues. Now let's take a look at the screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. So as you can see, there is some sort of a rainbow effect depending on how you twist and turn the screen. But if you're looking at it dead on like this, it's not too bad. It's just when you start twisting and turning, that's when the rainbow effect gets worse. So it's definitely not horrible. So now let's take a look at the light bleed from the edges here. See how good that alignment is. So there is just a very slight bit of light bleed from the side of the screen. Not horrible. Let's see the other side. Again, very nice. This is probably the second screen protector I've seen so far that has such a small gap. So definitely good there. So now let's test out our case. If you're interested, this is the CASEBANG sheath case. So it seems to fit this case perfectly. There's just a very slight gap on the top here, on the bottom, and on the sides. So it may or may not be case friendly with the case you're going to be using because the tolerances on the side are so small. But that's also good because that's less area for dust and things to collect in. It's just, again, it may or may not be case friendly with your case. You're just going to have to try it out. But looking good so far. So I'm really liking everything I see about this screen protector so far. So now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So we're going to start off the test by dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 5 feet. 6 feet. 6 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 6-foot drop, which is definitely respectable. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6, so we're going to start off with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally, number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are light at a number 6 and deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance is pretty standard, if not ever so slightly better than regular tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was super easy. It also may or may not be case friendly with most cases. It lasted up until a 6-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be maybe just a titch better than regular tempered glass. And then here we have a tempered glass screen protector by SPIGEN. This is the Glastr EZFit. So we get 2 tempered glass screen protectors, a squeegee, and an installation packet. Then you can use the dust sticker to remove any dust you might see. Then take your screen protector, making sure that the top is pointing towards the camera on your phone. Then we're going to turn this over and peel off the little sticker that says back. Then just place this whole thing over the top of your phone, just like this. And then slide your finger down the middle of the screen and wait 30 seconds. As you can see, it'll start to adhere to your phone. Then once the 30 seconds are up, just hold down on the guide and we're going to peel up the sticker in the middle here, just like that. And then just lift up on your guide. Then peel up the top protector. And you're all set. So it does look like we have some bubbles on the screen here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to squeegee those out with the squeegee first. And it doesn't look like they're coming out very easily. This little one keeps coming back. So what I'm going to have to do is very carefully lift up on the glass to remove the bubbles. If you're going to do this yourself, be very careful because you can easily crack the screen. All right, so I was able to get those bubbles out pretty easily by lifting the screen. Looks like a good installation. We also do have a slight gap around the front of the screen for case compatibility. Looks like we have one little bubble in the corner here. Okay. As far as touch, feels nice and smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. The edges are slightly rounded. Maybe not as rounded as some of the other tempered glass screen protectors, but they are slightly rounded. As far as fingerprints, does seem to do a pretty good job at rejecting fingerprints. So now this is a full coverage screen protector, so we're going to test out our Face ID and our camera. Face ID working perfectly fine. As you can see, the screen is crystal clear and touch is working without any issues. So touching these edges, they do seem a little bit sharp. Even though they're ever so slightly rounded, your finger does kind of catch on the edges of the glass, which I don't particularly like, especially the bottom. When I push up on the screen here, I can feel my finger catching on the glass. So now let's see what the screen looks like as if you're looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And as you can see, there's a very slight rainbow effect. It's like a pastel color. Definitely not nearly as bad as some of the other screen protectors I've seen. And if you're looking at it, you know, dead on like you would normally, you really won't even see that rainbow effect. So now I also want to see if there's any edge bleed. So we'll zoom in here. And if we take a look at the edge, I don't really see any. So that's definitely a plus. This is probably the first tempered glass screen protector I've seen so far that does not have any light bleed, at least not from what I can see. I think that looks pretty good. Or maybe a slight bit on the other side though. Yeah, just a very, very slight bit on the other side of the phone. But definitely not bad. So now let's put the phone inside of our case here. Seems to fit the case perfectly. It does seem to pretty much touch the edges of the case, but there's a slight gap on the top and the bottom of the phone. So it may or may not be case friendly with most cases. But I don't see any bubbles, any lifting. It does seem to be fitting perfectly fine with the SPIGEN case. So other than my finger kind of catching on the bottom of the screen protector, if you're not using a case, if you're using a case, then you are not going to feel it because your finger can't fit in such that a small gap. But if you're not using a case, the one downside is that it's kind of sharp on the edge of the screen protector. But other than that, seems to be pretty good. So let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So we're going to be dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 3 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 3-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So regular tempered glass starts to scratch around the Mohs hardness number 6. So we're going to start off with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and a little deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was pretty easy, even though there were some bubbles. It also may or may not be case friendly with most cases. It lasted up until a 3-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. So here we have ESR's regular tempered glass screen protector. So here we have our installation guide, our installation packets, and we get 3 tempered glass screen protectors. Use your dust sticker to remove any dust. Then take your installation guide, making sure that it doesn't really matter which way you install it. Just press this over the top of your phone, just like this. Then take one of your screen protectors, making sure that the sticker is on the underside of the screen protector, and it doesn't matter which way you put it in the guide because it's all the same around. So peel off the underside sticker, then place the whole screen protector inside the guide, just like this. Slide your finger up the middle of the screen protector and it should start to adhere. It does look like we have a big bubble here. And you can kind of help it down if you need to. Then when you're done, push down on the phone, lift up on the guide. And it does look like we have a rather large bubble right here. So I'm just going to use a squeegee to get that out. You can use a credit card or a plastic squeegee if you have it. Seems like that came out very easily. Then we'll take a look. So not too bad. Looks like a pretty good installation. There is a pretty good gap all the way around the screen, so it should be compatible with most cases. The edges are also rounded off. Very nice. Screen looks nice and clear. As far as the feel, super smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. It is also a full coverage screen protector, so we'll test out our Face ID. Face ID working fine. And as far as our camera also looks nice and clean, pretty flawless. Now as far as fingerprints goes, does seem to do a pretty good job at fingerprint rejection. There's only some slight smudges on the screen, but you can very easily just wipe those away with minimal effort. So now let's take a look at the screen as if you're looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And as you can see, there is a pretty good rainbow effect. And if you're looking at it dead on, you're probably still going to see a slight bit of rainbow. It doesn't seem to matter which way I'm looking at it, there's rainbow all around. So that may or may not bother you. Now on the sides of the glass, there does seem to be a little bit of a rainbow effect and some light bleed. Let's take a closer look at that. So if we look at our edges here, you can very slightly see just a very tiny bit of light coming through a little crack in the side. Let's take a look at the other side. Again, it's about the same thing. Just a little bit, so you can see it. And it also seems down at the bottom of the screen, there's a slight bit of a rainbow. You can kind of see the purple and the greens. This doesn't really bother me. It's just something I wanted to bring up in case everybody else does. So let's take a look at the screen. As you can see, it's nice and clear. As far as touch, nice and smooth. And again, touch is working perfectly fine. So let's put it in our case. And it seems to fit my case perfectly. There's a slight gap all the way around the screen, so there's no lifting, no bubbles. And it should be case compatible with most cases. And you can see the screen got a little bit more smudged up from me kind of touching it a little more, but again, you can very easily just wipe those away. And the screen protector also does seem to fit perfectly around the screen as well. It doesn't look like it's obstructing any of the screen from what I can see. So not bad at all. Everything's looking pretty good. So let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So we're going to start off our test by dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go, 2 feet. Here we go, 3 feet. 4 feet. 5 feet. 5 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 5-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So regular tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6. So we're going to start off with the number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and maybe a little deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was pretty easy. It also does seem to be case friendly. It lasted up until a 5-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. And then here we have ESR's Armorite Series tempered glass screen protector. It's supposed to have 110 pounds of force resistance. Now we're going to test out ESR's Armorite Series tempered glass, and this is supposed to be the strongest tempered glass that ESR has. So it looks like we get a couple tools here. We have installation packet, we've got our squeegee, we also have a couple refills for our tempered glass guide, and we get one tray with our installation screen protector already put in. Remove any dust with our dust sticker. Then I'll take our installation guide, and you need to make sure that the installed screen protector is stuck down on these little guides here, because mine was not. It had actually come up, so just make sure that those are pressed down on there. We're going to take our phone, and you need to put this in upside down with the camera going towards the top of the screen protector. Make sure that this tab is down on top of the screen protector before we put in our phone. Then we're going to put this down. Then we're going to put this in upside down, just like this. Just press that into place. And then we're going to close the lid here. Then we're going to press down on the top of the protector, just like this. And then we're going to pull the tab out. Then we're going to wait 30 seconds. Then we can take our phone out of the tray.
Sorry, I don't understand.
And it does look like we have one little bubble on the inside here. Everything else is perfect except for that one little bubble. So I'm going to have to lift up the screen protector very carefully. And then we can use our squeegee to kind of push this back down. And then just use the squeegee to kind of get the corners. So not a bad installation. Other than that one little bubble, everything else seems to be perfect. Well, maybe except for the bottom here. We do have a rather large bubble on the bottom, which is kind of interesting. Let's see if we can get that out. Well, maybe I spoke too soon. At the very bottom of the screen protector, it looks like the screen isn't adhered to the phone. You can see just that kind of lifted portion of the screen. Just kind of weird. You can see right there. It's like a long bubble on the edge of the screen protector. You don't see it on the sides. You don't see it on the top, but you do see it on the very bottom here. So that's definitely not good. And you're already, this is supposed to be their best screen protector. And I did try to get it out already. It just seems to come back. But either way, we're going to keep on with the testing. So the edges are also rounded off. That's pretty nice. There also does seem to be a gap around the edge of the screen, more at the top than there is anywhere else. You can see that large gap there versus where there's not a ton on the bottom or on the side. So that might be an issue with the guide too. As far as fingerprints, it does seem to pick up some fingerprints on the screen that you can see there, kind of in smudges, but it very easily wipes away. As far as touch, super smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. So this is a full coverage screen protector too, so it does cover your camera and sensors. So let's test that out. Face ID working perfectly fine. Let's test out our camera. Camera looks nice and clear, don't see any issues there. So now let's take a look at our screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And you can see with this screen protector, there is still a slight rainbow effect, but not as bad as the cheaper ESR screen protectors. So that's a plus. As you can see, the screen is nice and clear, and touch is working fine. Now let's take a look at the light bleed from this screen. So if you take a look at the edge here, you can see that there is a ever so slight bit of screen. You can see through the little crack there. The top is even worse because the screen protector seems to be a little bit misaligned. And on the other side, still, you can kind of see that edge through the glass. So let's put this in our case. So it does seem to fit the case perfectly. I don't see any lifting, no bubbles, other than that large one on the bottom there that, has been there since installation. It doesn't seem like the screen protector actually touches the case itself. There's just a slight gap. It does seem to be a little off on the sides and on the top and the bottom, but again, it still seems to fit the case perfectly fine, so it should be compatible with most cases. So now comes the big question, is this screen protector stronger than the cheaper ESR screen protectors? Let's test it out with a scratch and a drop test. So we're going to be dropping the same 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. Here we go. Here we go, 3 feet. 4 feet. 4 feet. So the ESR Armorite Series tempered glass doesn't seem to be any more drop resistant than their regular tempered glass. It only lasted up until a 4-foot drop. So now let's move on to the scratch test. So regular tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6. So we're going to start off with the number 5. And we'll move on to a number 6. And then a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and a little deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for regular tempered glass. So installation for this screen protector was really easy. It also does seem to be case friendly. It lasted up until a 4-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. And then here we have the ZAGG XTR4. This is their brand new tempered glass screen protector. It's got blue light filtration, and it's also graphene fortified. So as always, we only get one tempered glass screen protector, an installation guide, and some wipes. So really quick, I do want to test out the blue light filtration of the tempered glass screen protector. I've got a little card here that is blue light sensitive. So if we shine any blue light onto this card, it immediately burns it in and turns purple, as you can see right there. Now, if I do the same thing through this tempered glass, the card should not turn purple at all. So I'm going to put this over the card here. So I'm going to put this over the card just like that, and we're going to do the same test. And it doesn't look like it's turning purple that much. There might be a slight bit getting through, but as you can see, it's not nearly as bad as the other card. So it does seem to filter out blue light. Then we'll take our guide, making sure that the top portion right here that says top is going towards the camera on our phone. So we'll take our phone, we'll put it inside the tray here, and then you can kind of use your wipe to kind of press it down inside to make sure that it's firmly in place. Then we'll take our dust sticker and remove any dust we see. Then take your screen protector, making sure that the little portion with the sticker is going towards the camera on your phone. You can also see that the little holes in each one of the sides here kind of line up with the posts on the guide here. These are circle, these are kind of oval, and they're the same way on the screen protector. So make sure the sticker is on the underside of your tempered glass. We're going to peel off that bottom part just like that. And then we're going to put our tempered glass screen protector over the little posts on the guide. Try to make sure that the screen protector doesn't touch the phone screen yet. And it looks like it just falls into place by itself without even touching it. So it's already adhered to the front of the phone, so then we can peel off the top protector. Then we can take our phone out of the guide. So let's take a look and see how it did. For the most part, it looks pretty good. I just have a little bubble right at the top here, which I should be able to easily press out with my finger since they don't give you any sort of a squeegee. Does kind of seem like it's kind of coming back. So I would take a credit card or something else like that and try to get this little bubble out. It looks like it's actually a piece of dust. So I'm going to try to get that out by lifting up the screen. It's always something. So I was able to get that little piece of dust out, and installation looks pretty good. Don't see any bubbles, no lifting. There is also a slight gap all the way around the phone for case compatibility, which we will be testing out. This is also a full coverage screen protector, so it does cover your camera and sensors, so we'll test that out as well. As far as touch, nice and smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. As far as fingerprint rejection, does seem to do a pretty good job at rejecting fingerprints. There's only slight smudges on the screen, and you can very easily wipe those away with minimal effort. So now let's test out our Face ID. Face ID working fine. As you can see, the screen is crystal clear. Let's test out our camera. Camera looks nice and clear as well. Don't see any issues there. Now, as you saw from the screen, it did have a slight green tinge to it. I really don't see any difference in the colors on the screen, but if you're very sensitive to that, you might want to just kind of avoid the screen protector and just get a totally clear one. But from what I can see, I really don't see any like green tinge to the screen. The edges of the screen are also rounded off, nice and smooth. And again, touch working perfectly fine on the screen. So now let's take a look at our screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. So as you can see, there is a slight rainbow effect on the screen. Depending on how you kind of look at it, it could get worse or could get a lot better. If you're looking dead on onto it like this, there's really not much of a rainbow effect, but it's when you start looking at it from the sides that you really start to see that rainbow. So now let's see if there's any light bleed on the sides of the screen protector. And I can already tell you the bottom of this screen protector does have like a little bit of a purple and a green rainbow going on, and I'll show you that right now. So if we take a look at the bottom here, you can see what I'm talking about. You can see the purple and the green kind of rainbow at the bottom of the screen protector. That's really the only place that I see it, and at the top, and a little bit on the sides. But I mean, I don't really care about that. That's not really a huge deal to me, but it's just something I wanted to point out. Now let's test out the light bleed from the sides of the screen. You can see there's just a very little bit that it's maybe not perfectly aligned with the camera or the phone. And on the other side, again, you can see that as well. Just a slight bit of light bleed because of maybe a misalignment. But it's not horrible. So now let's put this into our case. And if you're curious, this is the CASEBANG sheath case. It's one of my new favorite cases. There is also a gap at the bottom of the screen as well as the top and slightly on the side. So it's not touching the case. There's no lifting, no bubbles. So it should be case friendly with most cases. So the screen protector is looking good so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test to test out the durability. So we're going to be dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go, 2 feet. 2 feet. So this screen protector only lasted up until a 2-foot drop, which is some of the worst drop protection that I've seen in any of my reviews. And for what they're asking for the screen protector, you should be getting much better drop protection. I've seen better drop protection out of some of the cheaper tempered glass. And the only special thing that this screen protector really does is filter out blue light, which you can do with your phone anyway. So now that we've done the drop test, let's move on to the scratch resistance. So regular tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6, so we're going to use a number 5. And then we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and just a little bit deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was really easy. It also does seem to be case friendly. It only lasted up until a 2-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. So I am definitely pretty disappointed with the performance of this screen protector. They're asking $60 for this. There's really nothing special about this screen protector other than the fact that it has blue light filtration. They're saying that it's 11 times stronger than some of their other tempered glass. But that's really not saying a lot because it only lasted up until a 2-foot drop. So for my recommendation, I would tell you to go with some of the other tempered glass screen protectors that have much better drop protection and don't cost nearly as much. And then here we have the UAG Glass Shield tempered glass screen protector. So we get one screen protector, an installation guide, and some installation wipes. Then take your installation guide, making sure where it says top goes towards the camera on your phone, and we'll just press this into place. Then take your screen protector, making sure that the sticker is on the underside of the glass, so we'll just peel that off. And it doesn't matter which way you put this in your phone because it's symmetrical. And then it should start to adhere to your phone and kind of help it along with your finger if you want to. Then we'll take off the guide. So I did get a little bubble in the corner here, as you can see right there, and then there's a large bubble on the top and a little bubble on the corner here. So I'll just kind of lift up the edge of the glass to kind of get that out. All right, so let's take a look at the screen here. I was able to get that bubble out just by kind of lifting up the screen and then just squeegeeing out the rest of the screen protector to get those bubbles on the edge out. Installation wasn't bad. There also does seem to be a gap, a pretty big gap all the way around the screen for case compatibility, which we will be testing out. As far as touch goes, the screen feels nice and smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. The edges are also rounded off. As far as fingerprints, it does seem to pick up some smudges on the screen, but you can very easily wipe those away due to that oleophobic coating. Now this is a full coverage screen protector, so it does cover your camera and your sensors. So let's test out our Face ID. Face ID working fine. Let's test out our camera. Camera looks nice and clear. Don't see any issues there either. Touch working fine. As you can see, the screen is also nice and clear. So now let's take a look at the screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. So as you can see, there is a rainbow effect. If you're looking at the screen kind of dead on, it's minimal, but it's just the moment you kind of twist and turn the screen, the rainbow gets much worse. So now let's take a look at the light bleed from the edges of the screen themselves. So if we take a look at the edge here, you can just see a little tiny bit of light bleed. You can see it right there, kind of through the edge. And then on the other side here, you can see it there as well. It's a lot more, it seems like it's a lot more prominent on the other side. So it's definitely not perfectly cut out for the phone. Then let's put it in our case. So here it is in the UAG Pathfinder case. It does seem to fit perfectly. There's still a slight gap on the bottom, very small on the top and very slight on the edges, but I don't see any lifting, any bubbles, anything like that. So if you're using a UAG case, it should fit your phone perfectly. If you're using other phone cases, it may or may not fit because the gaps around the case they're very slim. So again, the only way to test it out is to actually try it with the case you're going to be using. So this screen protector does not have any anti-reflective coatings on it. So you can see how it reflects my studio light pretty strong inside the glass. So not too bad so far, but let's move on to our scratch and the drop test. So we're going to start off our test by dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 4 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 4-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So regular tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6. So we're going to start off with a number 5. And we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally a number 7. So if you take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and a little deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was pretty easy. Even though there were a few bubbles, I was able to get them out. It may or may not be case friendly with the case you're going to be using. It lasted up until a 4-foot drop, and scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. And then here we have UAG's Glass Shield Ultra. This screen protector has anti-reflective coatings, reinforced edges, anti-fingerprint, and antimicrobial coatings as well. So again, we get one screen protector, an installation guide, and an installation packet. Then take your installation guide, making sure that the top is going towards the camera on your phone. We'll press this into place. Then take your screen protector, making sure that the sticker is on the underside of the glass. Doesn't matter which way you install this because it's equal all the way around. So we'll peel off our protector on the bottom. Then we'll place this inside the guide just like this. And then kind of just run your finger down the side so it can install on your screen. It did get a little caught on the edge of this guide here, so I'm going to have to lift up the guide. You can see the large bubble right there. It got caught up on the edge, so I'm going to lift up the protector to release that bubble. And there we go. So it does look like I got a little bit of dust underneath the screen, of course. So we'll try to get that out really quick. All right, so I was able to get out most of the dust with the dust sticker by gently lifting up on the glass, but the alignment for the glass does seem to be pretty off because there's a pretty large gap on the right side here and not as much on the left. So that's going to be a big issue for when we're doing the light bleed test, because there's going to be probably a lot of light coming out from the side of this glass. So that's definitely not good, especially because I didn't align it. We used the guide and this is how it came out. So there is a fairly large gap on the top, at the side, and the bottom. Not so much on the left side here. The glass is rounded off as far as touch. It's nice and smooth, just like the glasses on the phone. And then as far as fingerprints goes, it does have the anti-fingerprint coating, but as you can see, there are smudges on the glass, but you can very easily just wipe those away. Now this is a full coverage screen protector, so it does cover your camera and your sensors at the top. So let's test out our Face ID. Face ID working fine. Test out our camera. Camera looks nice and clear as well, so there should be no issues there. As you can see, the screen looks nice and clear. Touch working perfectly fine. Now as far as that edge, I can definitely see a piece of the screen that comes out from underneath the screen protector because it is so misaligned, and I'm sure you can tell that right on the edge there as well. So that's definitely going to be a pretty big problem. So let's take a look at the screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And just like the regular glass shield, this also does have a rainbow effect on it. If you're looking at it dead on, it's not super bad, but the moment you start twisting and turning the phone, it does get pretty bad. But definitely not horrible. So again, let's take a look at that light bleed. It's going to be bad. So on this side, we just see a very, very tiny bit. But on this side, because of the misalignment, you can see how much of the screen actually comes out from the glass. So that's definitely not good. Now the screen protector also does have an anti-reflective coating, so I'll show you the difference between this one and the regular glass shield right now. So here, as you can see on the Glass Shield Ultra, the anti-reflective coating actually does tone down the studio light, so you can kind of see what's on the screen here, versus the regular Glass Shield that does not have any coating whatsoever. The light is pretty blinding on the glass of the phone, and you really can't even see what you're looking at with that glass. So there definitely is some difference between the anti-reflective coating and the non. So let's put our phone inside of our case. There is going to be a misalignment again because of that big gap. So there is a large gap on the side here, a little bit on the top, a little bit on the bottom. And it's pretty much right against the case on the other side. So again, just like with the regular glass shield, this may or may not fit the case that you're going to be putting it in. You're just going to have to test it out. But I don't see any lifting, no bubbles, so it should fit your UAG case perfectly. So now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test to see if there's any difference between the regular Glass Shield and the Glass Shield Ultra. All right, so again, we're going to be starting the drop test off at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. Moving on to 4 feet. 4 feet. All right, so this screen protector lasted up to a 4-foot drop, just like the regular glass shield. So it doesn't seem like there's any difference in drop protection. So let's move on to the scratch resistance to see if there's any difference there. So we're going to be starting off with a number 5. And we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6, and just a little bit more at a number 7. So scratch resistance seems to be standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector could have been better. As you saw from the video, there was a misalignment of the glass on the phone, which does make a big difference. And also, it may or may not be case friendly with most cases. It lasted up until a 4-foot drop, and scratch resistance is pretty standard for tempered glass. And here we have a privacy tempered glass screen protector by WSKEN. So we get this really nice installation guide. We get two tempered glass screen protectors, a squeegee, and some installation tools. So the first thing we need to do is to install one of our screen protectors. So just take one of those out, making sure that these little pegs on each side go into the holes on each side of the guide. Just going to press those down into place. Just like that. Then we're going to take our phone. Then you're going to go back to your guide. You're going to lift up on this just like that. And we're going to place our phone with the camera going towards the top of the protector. And then just take your wipe and just kind of press that back into place. Then lower your screen protector, making sure that these little plastic guides fall between the two posts on the bottom here. And then just close this up. Just like that. Then we're going to hold down on the guide. You don't have to push it down really hard. Just make sure that the guide doesn't move because we're going to pull out this little tab here. So we'll just pull the tab out. Once that's done, you're going to kind of lift up on the guide here and we're going to pull this out just like this. And then we're going to push it back. And you can lift that up, lift up on the guide. And then we can take our phone out. So it's a pretty nice looking installation. I see just a little bit of bubbles down in the corner here, but I can very easily just kind of push those out. We have our squeegee that we got on our pack. So just kind of squeegee those out. And it looks like a pretty nice installation. So let's take a closer look here. You can see it as a full coverage screen protector, so it does cover your cameras, and it's got kind of like a little cover for your speaker as well. We also do have a slight gap all the way around the phone for case compatibility, which we will test out. As far as touch, feels super smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone, maybe even a little bit smoother. The edges do seem to be rounded off. Let's take a look at our camera here, our front camera. It looks nice and clear, don't see any issues there. Let's test out our fingerprints. Does seem to pick up some smudges on the screen, but you can very easily just wipe those away. Very nice. So now let's test out our Face ID. Face ID is working perfectly fine, and as you can see, the screen is crystal clear. Touch working fine, no issues. Now let's take a look at our screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. So you can see there is a little bit of like a pastel rainbow. If you look at it dead on, that's what you're looking at. There's still a little bit of a discoloration, but it's not as bad as if you start twisting and turning the screen. So not too bad. And then for the privacy screen portion, if you turn it to the left, the screen kind of disappears, or the right. Very nice. It does not work up and down though. But that's with any privacy screen protector. And then let's take a look at the light bleed from the sides of the screen protector. And it doesn't really seem like there is any. That looks pretty good. I don't see any light bleed, and you can see it's at full brightness. No bleed there. None at the bottom. On the other side. Yeah, there's a little bit on the other side. You can see that. Again, this doesn't bother me at all. I don't know if it does anybody else, but it's just something I kind of wanted to show you guys because somebody had made a comment on it on one of my videos. So now let's put it into our case. And it does seem to fit this case perfectly. This is the CASEBANG sheath case. It looks like there's a gap on the bottom and then the top. Maybe on the sides a little bit, but I don't see any lifting, no bubbles. It fits the case perfectly. But the only problem with that is when it fits so perfect, it may or may not fit the case that you're going to use. You'll just have to try it out. But I definitely prefer there be less of a gap because then that's less places for dust and dirt to collect. So looking good so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. All right, so we're going to start the test off at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 4 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 4-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So we're going to start off the test with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and almost the same at a number 7. So scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was really easy. The only problem is it may or may not be case friendly with your case. It lasted up until a 4-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. And then here we have a clear tempered glass screen protector by WSKEN. So we have our installation tool here. It's pretty neat. We get 2 tempered glass screen protectors, some stickers, a squeegee, and our installation packet. So the first thing we need to do is to take one of our screen protectors. We're going to place it in our guide. Just put these 2 posts in the 2 little holes on the installation tool here. Press those into place until they clip in. And close that up for now. Then we're going to take our tray. We're going to open that back up. Then just lift up your whole screen protector like that. Then take your phone, put it inside the guide with the camera going up towards the top of the installation tray. And then you can kind of press that into place with your little wipe and then get rid of any other dust you might see. Once you do that, just lay the whole screen protector down, just like that. Then we're going to close the tray, making sure it's pushed all the way back. Then you're going to hold down on the guide with one hand. Just make sure that it doesn't move around. Then we're going to pull out this little tab here. Then we need to push this whole top piece this way. So we're going to lift up a little bit and then hold on the back here and just pull out. And then we're going to push it back in. Just like that. We can open it up. Then we're going to lift up on the top protector. And then you can take out your phone. And there's just a little bit of bubbles on the bottom here, but everything else looks great. Some of the best installations that I've seen with this tray here. Let's squeegee out some of our bubbles. Looks like there's something stuck underneath the glass that I cannot get out, but it is what it is. That's there. But other than that, installation looks really good. Very nice looking screen protector. Maybe you guys can see that little bit of dust or whatever stuck under the screen. The edges do seem to be rounded off. Oh, I see some other kind of bubbles at the top here. Okay. As far as touch, feels nice and smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. There also does seem to be a slight gap all the way around the screen, so we'll test out case compatibility. Let's test out our front camera. Front camera looks nice and clear. Don't see any issues there. Let's test out our Face ID. Face ID is working fine. You can see it is crystal clear. Touch working fine. No issues. Nice and smooth. Let's test out our fingerprint rejection. So as you can see, there's smudges all over the screen. But we can very easily just wipe those away with minimal effort. Very nice. So looking good so far. Now let's look at the screen as if we're looking at it through polarized sunglasses. So there, as you can see, there is a little bit of discoloration, not really too bad. And even if we turn the screen, I mean, you're not going to be really looking at the screen that way, but this is probably one of the best screens that I've seen as far as this rainbow effect goes. It is minimal. And then let's take a look at the light bleed from the edges here. So it does look like there's a slight bit on the side here, and then on the other side you can still see it there too. So now let's put it in our case. It does seem to fit the case perfectly. We do have a slight gap on the bottom, the side, the top, and the other side. So it does seem to be compatible with this CASEBANG sheath case. But because these tolerances are so tight, it may or may not fit the case that you're going to use. You're just going to have to try it out. But I don't see any bubbles, no lifting. So it does fit this case perfectly. So everything's looking good so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. All right, so we're going to start off the drop test at 2 feet. Here we go, 3 feet. Moving on to 4 feet. 5 feet. 5 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 5-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So we're going to start off the test with a number 5. Moving on to a number 6. And then finally a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are a little deeper at a number 6 and deeper than that at a number 7. So scratch resistance is pretty standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was really easy. The only thing is it may or may not be case friendly with the case that you're going to use. It lasted up until a 5-foot drop, and scratch resistance is pretty standard for tempered glass. So now let's install and test the screen protector. And then here we have a screen protector by CASEBANG. So we get one tempered glass screen protector with an installation guide and some installation tools. So the very first thing we need to do is to thoroughly clean off our screen with the included alcohol wipe. Then we'll dry the screen off. Then you can remove any dust with the dust sticker. Then you're going to take your tempered glass screen protector, making sure that the top signifier goes towards the camera on the phone. We're just going to press this over the top of our phone just like this. Then you're going to hold on to the guide with your left hand, and we're going to pull this little tab with the right. You don't have to don't press down very hard on the guide, just hold it in place, and we'll pull this out. And it broke off. Awesome. So that's not going to work. Oh, this is going to be bad. This is still on here. I'm going to lift this up. As you can see, it kind of came off. I don't know if we can put that back on. So I'm going to try this one more time. Pull out this little plastic tab down here, just like this. Come on. So it didn't work again. So I'm just going to remove the bottom layer. Hopefully it doesn't get any stuff on it. And then I'm just going to press this down on top of my screen just like this. Press that into place, and then just slide my finger up the middle here and it's adhering to the phone, and it looks okay. So I think we've salvaged that. And we'll just lift up on the guide here. Okay. So it looks like we have some bubbles on the bottom here, but that's fixable. So we'll take, I'm going to use a little squeegee here to try to squeegee those out. Actually, I'm going to lift up on the screen just ever so slightly and then press it down with my finger. So it looks like I was able to salvage that screen protector installation. The little piece came off prematurely. It wasn't actually supposed to just come off like that. I was supposed to pull out the plastic part by itself, but that didn't happen. But looks pretty good other than that horrible installation. The screen looks nice. It is also a full coverage screen protector, so it covers your camera and sensors. As far as touch, nice and smooth, just like the glass on the phone. The edges don't seem to be rounded off. They're a little bit sharp. As far as fingerprints, it does seem to pick up some fingerprints, which you can see kind of right there on the screen, but because the screen's so smooth, they very easily just wipe away. It looks really nice. There's also a very slight gap between the edge of the phone and the screen protector for case compatibility, which we will test out as well. As far as Face ID working fine. Let's check out our camera. Camera looks nice and clear. Don't see any issues there. And the screen looks nice and clear. Touch is also working perfectly fine, no issues there. So now let's take a look at the screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. So as you can see, there is a slight rainbow effect on the screen if you look at it from the side. But if you're looking at the screen dead on, there's really not a rainbow effect, so it's definitely not a deal breaker. If you kind of look at it from up top, you can see more of that rainbow. But again, if you're looking at the screen normally, you really shouldn't see any rainbow effect. So let's put it in our case. And it looks like it fits the case perfectly. There's still a slight gap around the edges of the phone for case compatibility. I don't see any lifting, no bubbles. So it definitely looks pretty good. So now I want to test the light bleed from the edges of the screen. I've heard some reports of screen protectors showing light bleed, and I want to try to mimic that situation. So I've got a pure white background here. I do not have my brightness up all the way because typically when you're in a dark environment, that's the only time you're going to see light bleed, and you're most likely not going to have your brightness up all the way. It's probably going to be at a normal level. So we're going to test that out right now. So if we take a look at the screen protector from the side, you can definitely see that you can see the light from the slight gap in the screen protector on the screen. You can see the kind of white light underneath the screen. I don't know how much of a big deal this is. It's really not for me. I don't really care. It shouldn't affect your usage of the phone or seeing the screen at all. And if you have a case on it, you're going to see that light bleed even less. But nonetheless, I just kind of wanted to show you guys, if there was any light bleed with this screen protector. And you can kind of see the edge of the glass of the phone just underneath that little crack there. So besides the installation, everything else is looking pretty good. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So we're going to start off the test by dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go at 2 feet. So it doesn't look like it cracked, but it did make this little mark. So if you want to count that as only 2 feet, you can, but we're going to move on to 3 feet because I don't really see any cracks other than that little mark right there. Here we go, 3 feet. And there we go, 3 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 3-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So regular tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6. So we're going to start off our test with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then a number 7. So if we take a closer look, you can see there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and just a little bit deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. So there were some issues when installing the screen protector, making the installation harder than it actually should have been. It does seem to be case friendly. It lasted up until a 3-foot drop, and scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. If you guys have stayed with me this far, thank you so much for all your support. And if you're enjoying the video and you found it at all useful, please help the channel grow by giving me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. So now that I've had a chance to test out all these screen protectors, I'm going to tell you which ones I thought were the absolute best. But before I can do that, I need to tell you which screen protector was the absolute worst. And that title unfortunately goes to UAG's Glass Shield Ultra. The biggest downfall for the screen protector was the misalignment of the glass during the installation process. Once the glass is misaligned, it throws off your whole viewing angle and it doesn't fit right with any of the cases. Not to mention that it wasn't any better in the drop or scratch resistance versus the UAG regular glass shield. Now for the best anti-glare matte tempered glass screen protector, that goes to FLOLAB's ONETIME Pro Max. Not only was the screen protector easy to install, but it also felt great when swiping your hand across the glass. It also had good glare reduction and great drop and scratch resistance. Then for the best clear tempered glass screen protector, we have ESR's regular tempered glass. It was easy to install and it's got good drop protection. I think the screen protector was also one of the cheapest screen protectors that we've actually tested. It was very easy to install and it's got good drop protection. Then for the best privacy tempered glass, we have FLOLAB's ONETIME Pro. The screen protector was easy to install, and like most other privacy screen protectors, this one actually has anti-glare. And as far as the scratch resistance, it also had very light scratches versus most of the other screen protectors as well. Then for the screen protectors that have the overall best drop protection, that goes to FLOLAB's ONETIME Pro Max matte screen protector and the ULTRAGLASS. Both of these screen protectors lasted up until a 6-foot drop, and in addition to that, they both seemed to have the lightest scratches when I was doing the scratch test. Then for the screen protector that had the best overall scratch resistance, that goes to FLOLAB's ONETIME Pro Max matte screen protector again. In addition to it being anti-glare, having some of the best drop protection, it also seemed to have the lightest scratches when I was doing the scratch test. Now, if there's a screen protector that you didn't see in this video that you'd like to recommend for future videos, let me know in the comments below. I'd also really like to know what your favorite screen protector was and why you chose it. Thank you again to everyone for all your support. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.